pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alderman Miller will lead us in the invocation.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, we come, Lord, we say we thank you for another day. Dear Lord, we thank you, Lord, for the opportunity you have given us to serve you, your people, one more time. We pray, Lord, whatever decision we make, the first of all, Lord, that we please in that sight. Continue, Lord, to bless our military, wherever it might be. And Lord, bless our first responders that's still on the front line. We just thank you, Lord, in this great nation of you able to do. Just thank you, God, in Jesus' name.
Amen. All right, item number 4, approve the agenda.
I'd like to add an item to the agenda. Reference to page.
Okay.
Police. In reference to police, that's that one.
Okay. Oh, okay, okay.
Is that an executive session or is that just an
I
normal?
didn't say executive session.
I didn't, I know you didn't.
I mean,
I'm clarifying.
it's public.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion granted.
What was your?
16.
Somebody thinks.
All right, number 5, approve the docket of claims. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Item 6, approve the minutes. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Second. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
You there, Mike?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any opposed? Motion granted. Item 7, consent agenda. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Item number 8, requested from the Hernando Chamber of Commerce for funding. Mississippi?
Yes, I'm coming before y'all to request funding for the fiscal year 2021 for the amount of items that we've received. We are very thankful and do not take our funding lightly. I know we don't say thank you enough, but we certainly will appreciate it. It helps us to, in several ways, it helps us to carry out our mission, which is to promote and support the needs of business and industry by helping to create a sense of community in which to live, work, and conduct business. We also use it to help us be able to grow and strengthen our events, which brings economy to the chamber, not only the chamber, but also the city. And all the while we're doing this, we're also strengthening, creating, and growing our relationship with GIA, which helps us tremendously with events, and also helping y'all to achieve the goals that y'all have for the city.
We appreciate what you do. Any questions from the board?
I've got one.
Okay.
Did the chamber apply for the COVID money, because he couldn't hold 2 meetings this year?
We could not apply for that, Michael, because we're a 501c6, and those do not fall under those categories, or the chamber does not fall under that.
Did you get that, Mike?
Yeah.
I didn't know if you did.
The 501c3s can apply, but the C6s could not.
Okay.
Any more questions from the board? Audience? We'll take it in
I'd
consideration.
like to go for the record, it's refreshing to see you get our regular meeting without having requests. Thank you.
Item number 9, authorize to hire Dana Lowry as a full-time certified dispatcher.
I move to approve based upon Modernization of the
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Item number 10,
I have a question.
okay,
Was that motion, from the, personnel committee,
Andrew made a motion.
or the personnel committee?
Yes,
Okay, will we be hearing from the personnel on other, hires?
Every one of them goes through us, Mike, before they get to the board. Me and Andrew.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
all right, number 10, authorize to hire Pickering for code review and construction inspection services for AWG project on an as-needed basis, and authorize Mayor Ferguson to sign the agreement. Do we have a motion? Questions? Kenny's reviewed it, and Keith, and it's as a need basis. If we have someone sick or out, we can call in, or we got questions on something that out of our norm. Ready?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion granted. Item number 11, request approval for rezoning from R10 single family residential C2 highway commercial, 140 East Commerce Street.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request from Mr. Vance Daly to rezone the property at 140 East Commerce Street from R10 single family residential to C2 highway commercial. The applicant is requesting this rezoning. To do that, there are items in Article 18 that must be addressed. Number 1, how the proposed amendment will conform to the general plan. The future land use plan of the city's comprehensive plan designates the area as mixed use. The proposed use of the property as a multi-tenant office is within the uses described in the mixed use designation. Number 2, why the existing zoning classification of the property in question is inappropriate or improper. Staff believes the existing zoning is not improper as it reflects the residential use of the land since its construction prior to the city's current zoning ordinance. However, the existing zoning does not allow for proposed use of the property. Number 3, the major economic, physical, or social changes, if any, have occurred in the vicinity of the property in question. The surrounding uses to the north and south, on the north and south side of East Commerce, have changed to a mix of commercial and office uses. Staff comments to this request. The request before you is for the rezoning of the property from R10 single family residential to C2 highway commercial. The use of the property as a multi-tenant office is allowable in the C2 highway commercial zoning district. If approved, the applicant shall submit for certificate of development approval prior to any modification to the property. Following the certificate of development approval, the applicant shall submit construction plans for the building, for a building permit for any construction activity. Planning Commission met on Tuesday, July the 14th, and voted to recommend approval to the Board of Aldermen the rezoning of the property. Staff recommendation: because the requested zoning is in harmony with the city's future land use plan and is reflective of the changing character of the adjacent properties to the west and to the east, staff recommends approval subject to staff comments. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, and Mr. Daly is present if you have questions for him.
Keith, how does this fall in line with any of our historical, because is that not considered a historical?
While the building is an old building, it's not in the historic preservation district, and it's not on any of the
Not in the
national
registry.
register.
Shame.
Too bad.
Yeah. Have borrowed any money from
Oh, yeah. Good interest.
So how did this miss being in the historical district?
I wasn't here when the survey was done back in the 90s, but I'm going to guess that because of its location and proximity to the other areas, it was well outside the survey area.
And can I add, I'm not sure how this works. Van Staley, Mike, my understanding, again, don't hold me to this, but Thomas Mulligan, who owns the building, he added the building, I think it could make it on there, but he had some siding on there. I say siding, whatever the siding of that building now makes it not able to get on the registry, is what he told me, so.
Thank you, sir.
Not necessarily the registry, but the district.
Great, yeah, it's not in district credit.
It is not in our historic preservation yet policy here.
Did you have the choice to opt out of the historical district if you would like as well?
I think one of the reasons that house wasn't in, because it didn't connect to any other. They were trying to make districts where they connected, and that one didn't connect. It was kind of isolated.
What was that? I didn't hear that.
Kenny made the comment, he didn't think, there was connections, they would have to leapfrog over to get that building. That's why it's not in the historic district.
And the cabin behind it?
It's not historic district either, no, sir.
It's all one property. It was.
I think so.
I guess where I'm getting at, all the houses up Commerce, to my knowledge, they were gone before I got there, other than the Hall home that where Bancorp South sits next to. And then where the old, well, it's not Fred's anymore. There was a home there. Mr. Daly, I know I'm not supposed to ask this, but
If you're not supposed to ask it, don't ask it. You hear that, Mike?
or
Why don't y'all let Mr. Daly tell you what he's gonna do? That might answer some questions.
Any more questions for Keith at this moment? Thank you. Mr. Davis? Yes, Mr. Davis coming up. Mike?
Yeah, we okay. Mike and I, we talked, and my name's Van Davis. My wife and I moved to town here about 10 years ago. We bought City Hall Cheesecake 2 years ago. We also run a ministry in town. We are plugged into this community and love this community. Again, I don't know what's off limits or minimal, but I'm an attorney in town, and my plan is to set up my law office in that building. I want to save that building. I know with the planning commission, there's a lot of concern over it getting turned commercial and then getting rid of the building. Wanting to keep the building. Hear me as I stand before you. I want that property for that building. I don't have some ulterior motive to get rid of that building and do it. I love the columns on it. It is, again, way more than you want to know. It is set up beautifully in my mind for a law office. It's got offices upstairs to be protected and a bunch of open meeting spaces downstairs. Since I have been on this process, and I've had numerous people reach out to me going, hey, I want some space in that building. You're going to occupy all of it. So I may rent out some more space to some other people in that building, but I am here for that building, to keep that building, to set up my law office in that building and use it as a meeting space because it, like I said, my wife and I, we own City Hall Cheesecake. People like to hold events there. We have a very small space. And once this came up, my wife said, hey, guess what? If you get that, we may need those large dining rooms for some, meeting spaces that we can't do in the Cheesecake Building just for the space reasons. And so I plan on keeping it. I say I plan. Pursue it if y'all will grant it. Again, I have no motive to get rid of that building, but to keep that building because I do love that building. So I'll answer whatever other questions you guys have.
Do you like that building?
Man, yeah, I love it. It wasn't even on my radar, and I saw that for sale sign out there one day, and just called Mr. Mulligan if y'all know him or not. But anyway, it's just been a cool journey. So.
Any questions from the board? Mike?
I got another question for Keith.
Okay, you ready?
Since we know offices are going in there, why aren't we zoning it for office?
So, some of the uses that Mr. Daly has proposed as future, once he's established the property, would not be allowed in an office use.
Oh, I didn't hear all that, all I heard was office.
Well, he had mentioned meeting rooms, for events or whatever that may be catered, then that would not be allowed in an office district.
And if I may speak to that, Mike, just, and we were in planning commission, and Jim Franks was removed, and he just made a good comment in the field, you know what? Right now, offices is a great idea, when that may not work, and that may make for a great restaurant or some other purpose. And so the reason being, not wanting to limit that. Now, that is my plan, and I have no other plan but to put my office in and use it for meeting spaces and that type of stuff. But I also don't want to limit it to just an office in the event something does come up, and I don't make it as a lawyer anymore and need to rent it out to somebody else who uses it for some other purpose.
Well, if the intent is to be an office, and so you're gonna have meeting rooms, I know a lot of offices have, large executive tables where they have meetings. Should we not zone it towards office, and then if there's another one, and go back to zone commercial?
If that was to happen, he had to start this whole process back over again. You cannot, once you request a zone and it's been approved for that zone, you have to start all the way back over from square one, with announcing the whole 9 yards. We're talking about 2 or 3 months. Okay. I mean, unless that, that's something the board said, but if recommend that somebody come in and say it, I don't think it's.
Well, that's his choice to choose the zoning. It's
Yeah.
not our choice. We either approve it
Either
or
approve it or
disapprove it.
deny it.
That's right.
Again, all the intent has been said, and everything from the application and whatnot has been office.
With flexibility.
We are approving a rezoning to C2, and anything in C2 is approved for that building that we approved tonight. It's not just meeting rooms or whatever, doesn't make any difference. Anything in C2 is approved.
Keith, can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
One more.
C2 zoning. What limitations on where things can be built in a C2 zoning? From corner to corner?
Did you hear that?
Are you referring to the building setback lines?
Yes.
Each zoning district has building setback lines. So
I know,
there's,
and I'm asking about C2.
right, C2 is a zoning district, therefore it has setback lines that you cannot build past.
And how far to how far? From the next property?
Can I make a statement while you're looking it up? This C2, the requested zone, and it meets the setback guideline and everything, I'm correct?
Yes, sir.
Existing structure.
So regardless of what it was, 50 feet or 100 feet, it meets the guideline.
I understand that. But all intent, when it went to an application, went to the planning commission, it was office.
It was C2.
No, it was C2,
The
yes.
request was C2, not for office.
The explanations that were gonna be used has been office. Office this, people want to rent an office for this, have meeting rooms in an office.
It was.
There's never a restaurant mentioned, never.
It's
There's
a
a
restaurant.
whole array of things that you go and see too.
And we're approving every one of those. If we approve C2.
Yeah, I understand that. I think the truth.
The C2 zoning district has a minimum front yard setback of 50 feet, a rear yard setback of 20 feet, and no side yard setback requirement.
No side yard setback?
That is correct.
That's correct. Any more questions? Any questions from the audience?
I'd like to make a motion.
All right, Andrew, Alderman Miller.
I move to approve the rezoning of the 1.59 acre tract of land which is located at 140 East Commerce Street from R10 single family residential to C2 highway commercial, subject to staff comments.
Second.
Roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Aye.
Alderman Hall.
Aye.
Alderman Harris.
Aye.
Alderman Miller.
Aye.
Alderman Higgins.
Aye.
Alderman McClendon.
Nay.
Motion granted.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Item number 12. Request final plat approval for Arbor Point subdivision phase 2. 46 lot single family resident development southwest corner of Main Street, Ferguson Road.
Arbor Point subdivision phase 2, as the mayor stated, is at 46 lot. 41 of those will be residential, the other 5 will be common open space. Each lot will have a front yard setback of 25 feet, rear yard of 20, side yard of 5, and if it is a corner lot, a 25-foot setback. In your staff report are excerpts from the subdivision regulations that deal with subdivision standards, street, and sidewalks. Also included in your staff report are standard subdivision comments, comments specific to this application, pattern book that is required. It was adopted as part of phase 1. Prior to recording the final plat, all streets will be labeled on the plat. Prior to recording the plat and prior to beginning construction, the developer shall enter into a development agreement with the city of Fernando for the installation of all public improvements. This is in accordance with Article 6, Section B of the subdivision ordinance. The Planning Commission met on Tuesday, July the 14th, and voted to approve the final plat with the following conditions. 1, that the developer shall address and fix the erosion control issues. The developer has addressed those issues and is in the process of fixing them. Number 2, upon completion, the city engineer is to visit and to approve the work performed to fix the erosion control issues. Spoke with the city engineer and it has visited the site and is satisfied with the way that those issues are being addressed. And number 3, that the project engineer, which is Civil Link, should write a letter to the Office of Planning outlining the developer's plan to fix the erosion control problems. And I have received that letter from the engineer. This is phase 2 of a subdivision that was previously approved as phase 1, and now this is the second phase. Staff recommendation is for approval subject to staff comments and the Planning Commission conditions. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. The applicant and his engineer are present.
Keith, is the final overlay on the phase 1 been put in?
Not yet. I believe in subdivision regulations, you have to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 75 to 80% built out.
And how far are we from that right now? You get the idea?
They're probably about 30%
And that's just for phase 1 or for the whole thing?
for phase 1.
Do we need to get these roads bonded without having a final overlay?
That whichever road is designated as construction entrance will be in the subdivision development agreement that will come before you next month.
Is that where we talk about the sewer and storm drain? Is the next phase we're going to
You can talk about it in either spot.
Well, I was just wondering, I don't have a good enough map, maybe, are there storm drains going between lots, or? I see a lot of common open space, I guess it's.
The plat is for setting up the geometry of the lots and creating legal lots of record.
Any questions, Mike, or the board? Any questions from the audience?
Are we looking at a flat with lots on
Yeah.
it? What's the smallest size lot?
I can see this as well. Nick, would you know that question?
I'm double checking, I don't want to misspeak.
The property is zoned R10, so the smallest lot can be 10,000 square feet.
No, that's not true, because they've had other lots that were smaller than R10, and some that were larger. You said we took the average. So I'm just asking, what's the smallest lot?
10,002.
10,000.
10,002 is what Nick said. Nick was saying,
Has there been any erosion problems with Laurelwood and phase one?
I've heard no complaints.
have you, Mr. Joe?
Not in phase one. Phase one has, kind of backs up to that Ferguson property more than this one does. This one has more slope on the back of the lots. Phase one does.
Yeah, it slopes away from Laurelwood. It slopes to the south.
Any questions?
Where will the stormwater connect to? Down by the railroad tracks, or will it connect?
Yes.
Railroad track, yes.
Will it be just an open pipe going into whatever's back there, or will it connect?
Open ditch.
Could be an open ditch or
It's open.
open ditch. Is that open ditch counted as common open space?
I guess what I'm getting at, is that part of our greenway, Neil Schaefer did, that ran along that, train track line?
She is not here. I think he jumped across before he got down there. I'd have to look at the map and see.
Okay. Just want that to be part of the minutes, that I asked that question.
I'll check.
What's the question?
Was that part of the Greenway trail?
Back of our,
The Greenway turns on this south line, doesn't it? The south property line is where you cross the railroad track. It's not part of this
I'm not
section.
sure, I'm not sure where it turns.
even if it does, they have no bearing on this application. Am I correct?
What if they, open, stormwater is flushing right into a future project? Since this is a flat, no, it's not a flat.
Right. Does Greenway trail run all the way down to Arbor Point, down the railroad track?
It goes all the way down the railroad tracks and then it stops at one point. I have to look at it on a map.
She's not sure. I think it crosses before it gets to it.
Well, I guess we're on the
Yeah.
I'm fine with it, as long as it doesn't go into a Greenway trail. It has to be redone down the road.
Mr. Chairman, there would not be no legal reason to disapprove it for that reason, would it?
I don't even know where the Greenway
Well,
trail
it's kind of like having offices and then saying you want to turn it into a restaurant.
You know, I think it might be, Mike.
Well, I think we need to make sure before we approve it.
I just asked that question, I asked that question from a legal standpoint, whether it do or not have no bearing on whether you
It has to be
approve
there.
this denial or this application.
I mean, if they cause damage to some property that's not there, it's on them to be responsible.
Say it again, Kenny, I'm sorry.
If they cause damage to property that's not there, then they would be responsible for it. That doesn't have anything to do with the subdivision application.
So they're running stormwater on their property. Is that what we're saying?
I didn't say that.
Nick?
Nicholas Green, 1560 Line Circle. All the storm drains go down to the common open space, which the common open space is the original ditch. So all the storm drain leaves the site where it's always left. We didn't change where we moved water or nothing like that. As far as the greenway, this is my first, I didn't know anything about it.
Who owns the common open space?
The HOA.
HOA for the time being. I don't know the definition of common open space. Isn't this supposed to be used by the citizens or be used?
Is connected to that park where the detention pond's at and the walking trails around it. There's a walking trail down in it. That was all part of phase one. And then the lake that is there was the natural lake that was there before the development. It, you know, where the drains leave that lake, it goes down through the common open space and goes to the railroad track. And in the natural location, it's always gone. We didn't change and move that drainage. It's always been there.
More questions from the board? Any from the audience? We have a motion.
I make the motion. I move to grant final plat approval for Arbor Point subdivision phase 2, subdivision totaling 46 lots located at the southwest corner of Memphis Street, Ferguson Road, subject to staff comments and planning commission conditions.
Second.
Roll call.
Alderman Brooks.
Aye.
Alderman Hobbs. Alderman Harris.
Aye.
Alderman Miller.
Aye.
Alderman Higgins.
Aye.
Alderman McClendon.
One day, most of them get an answer.
Motion granted. Item 13, appeal to the planning commission denial of variance request required installation of sidewalks for development site. West Side Highway 51 north of 69. Andrew Bonds with Tiffany Construction.
The applicant desires to develop such a property as a distribution center for the grocery industry. The development will have frontage on Highway 51. There will be an access road from Highway 51 that will run west into the property and to the proposed building. In Chapter 7, Standard Design Ordinance, there is a requirement for sidewalk installation of all new construction. That section is quoted in your staff report. A variance from the terms of the design guidelines ordinance shall not be granted unless and until a written application for variance is submitted demonstrating all of the following. 1, that special conditions and circumstances exist that are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved and not generally applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same district. Staff believe that special conditions and circumstances do not exist which are peculiar to the land. The entire east side of the property has frontage on Highway 51. Number 2, that the literal enforcement of the provisions of these standards will deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties within the same district. It would not confer on the applicant any special privileges that is otherwise denied to other properties in the same district. The staff believes that a literal enforcement of the provisions of this ordinance would not deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district under the terms of this ordinance, because sidewalks are required along all street frontages of all development projects as seen in Chapter 7, Section 7 of the city's design standard ordinance. If approved, the variance would convey a special privilege to the applicant of not having to construct the required sidewalks that all other developments under this ordinance are required to install. Number 3, that the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant and are not based upon economic considerations. Special conditions and circumstances will result from the actions of the applicant in that they will not be required to develop the site according to the design standards ordinance. And finally, number 4, that the proposed modification upholds the intent and spirit of the ordinance by providing an equal or better standard of protection and aesthetic value than the strict requirements of the ordinance from which the variance is sought. The proposed variance does not uphold the intent and spirit of the design guideline and ordinance. The design guidelines ordinance, Chapter 1, purpose, first paragraph, contains language that addresses that to where it is for the betterment of the city, for that aesthetic and for that design standard to be upheld. The staff comments for this application. As a reminder, financial reasons are not a valid reason for a variance from the requirements of the design standards ordinance. The applicant has provided drawings on proposed layout of the site and the road. Those are included in your package. If the variance is approved, the sidewalk omission shall be part of the certificate of development approval. If the variance is denied, the sidewalk will be included as part of the certificate of development approval and with construction documents to be submitted for construction permit approval. Staff has researched the zoning ordinances from South Haven and Olive Branch and spoken with the respective planning directors to verify their requirements of installation of sidewalks in their ongoing developments. The city of South Haven's zoning regulations require a 5-foot sidewalk to be constructed along all urban, arterial, and collector streets. The South Haven planning director has stated that sidewalks are not required in the industrial area, and that South Haven does not require, they do require a pavement in lieu of sidewalk installation for future sidewalk construction in accordance with their city sidewalk plan. Staff has not been able to find any written ordinance verifying these requirements as stated by the South Haven planning director. The city of Olive Branch zoning ordinance requires that the subject property is not already providing a public sidewalk, construct a 5-foot sidewalk. Where property or development borders more than one street, sidewalks will be constructed along the entire frontage of all streets which the property or development borders. And that would be a minimum of a 5-foot sidewalk. The city of Olive Branch has a design standards mandatory requirement checklist for all their construction projects. This checklist has an area where the developers note the inclusion of sidewalk. In conversation with the Olive Branch planning director, their code does require sidewalks except in cases of agricultural residential, which is a rural subdivision, which have 1 acre lots or more. The Olive Branch Board of Aldermen on a case-by-case basis in the past has waived the requirements over the years in some industrial subdivisions. Most recently, the Board of Aldermen in Olive Branch approved a plan for IDI to install sidewalks on one side of the road where Ross Road extends to Nail Road, from Nail Road to Church Road. Included in your staff report is aerial photography of warehouses in both South Haven and Olive Branch. The photography indicates that the older warehouse projects do not have sidewalks, while the newer developments have sidewalks. All development, commercial or industrial, is required to install sidewalks along street frontage according to the city's ordinances. By granting a variance, a gap in future connectivity will be allowed. As the surrounding properties develop, the sidewalk will begin to fill in and connect a pedestrian network within the city. The Planning Commission action. The Planning Commission met on Tuesday, July 14th, and voted to deny the variance to waive the required sidewalk installation for the AWG project. Because special conditions and circumstances will result from the actions of the applicant, and because the proposed modifications does not uphold the intent and spirit of the ordinance to provide an equal or better standard of protection and aesthetic value. Staff recommendation is for denial of the applicant's request. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. And the applicants are present if you have questions for them.
Any questions from the board?
I got one.
Okay, Keith?
Keith, I know you weren't around when, Ford Creek, which is a subdivision on Highway 51, Deer Creek, and Cross Creek, when those were built, they do not have sidewalks between the front fence and Highway 51. So I can't hold you accountable for that one. But the subdivision that is just north of those that connects all four of those together, Crossroads subdivision, you were here, but there's no sidewalk in front of that between the fence and Highway 51. Now, if we have residents that leave their home on the sidewalk and get to Highway 51, and there's nowhere for them to walk because there's no sidewalk where there's probably 750 homes once this next subdivision's built, starting at Parkway, going all the way down to Great T Road, no sidewalk. And those are all new subdivisions since 2000, or 95 anyway. But yeah, we're gonna require subdivisions in industrial.
If I remember correctly, in conversation.
Sidewalks in industrial,
Excuse me, Mike?
we require sidewalks for the industrial, but we don't require them to be on Highway 51.
If I remember my conversation with the developer of Crossroads correctly, they were laying out curb and gutter and sidewalk on Highway 51, and Ndot stopped them.
They didn't when I drove by there. Ndot stopped.
That's what he told me. If they had curb laid out and curb and gutter was in the ground,
So then, do we allow subdivisions to be built too close to Highway 51 then?
I don't believe we do.
But we can't.
We have property that is zoned residential subdivision.
Oh, hang on a second, Mike. He was trying to speak. I'm sorry.
We have property that is zoned residential. Residential zoning districts allow for residential subdivisions. Therefore, a residential subdivision was brought before you and platted on that property.
Yeah, I just went through a plan about 2 months ago. And I was asking about storm drain. And now I'm asking about sidewalk in this one.
I'm not sure I fully understand your question.
Why is there a sidewalk for people leaving their homes to walk up Highway 51? But yet we want them to drive to this location, get out of their car, and get on the sidewalk.
I cannot answer that question for you.
I don't have any further.
Any more questions from the board, Keith? The audience? Step up. All right.
state your name and
All right, I'm Andrew John with Tiffin Construction. Speaker cards there. We'd like to give just a short presentation on our request. I got some handouts that just match the slides that we're going to show. So again, the handout's going to match the slides that we're going to have up. So while they're setting the slides up, again, I'm Andrew Vachon with Tiffin Construction. And also speaking with me tonight is Jarman Paragoy. He's our local civil engineer in the corner. Just a quick little background before we get into the meat and potatoes of the request. Tiffin Construction, who I work for, we're a design build general contractor that specializes in building temperature controlled facilities. That's all that we build. This is for AWG, Associated Wholesale Grocers. They're one of the largest wholesale grocers in the United States. They're also a repeat client for us and a well-respected client for us. As a lot of you guys might know, AWG researched upwards of 50 sites, looking for the right location. Throughout the process with them, I always heard them sticking with Hernando, and they're excited to have made that selection. They're committed to Hernando. In fact, if you've driven down Highway 51 lately, you might have noticed they closed on the property last week. We have broken ground. So we're very excited to get started. It's a 1 million square foot facility. It's the largest of its kind. It's unique in a lot of different ways, including its $32 million payroll that it brings. And again, AWG is grateful for all the time and effort in partnership with the city of Hernando thus far, and looks forward to more of that as we move forward. So we appreciate the opportunity to review this with you tonight. And just to start off, to refamiliarize a little bit with the site, on this first board here, stand over here so I'm not blocking. On this first board here, you got Interstate 69 and then Highway 51. This is a 242 acre parcel that we've broken ground on. The building is set back on the western part of the parcel, back against the creek area back there. There's about 80 acres or so of frontage left up here that they're not going to disturb yet. So that's just the site itself. And then I'll just stay over here so I'm not blocking it. So getting into the sidewalks, this first slide, there's several different things we just kind of want to point out. It's kind of an overview of the area. One of our first concerns or reasons why we don't see the practicality for a sidewalk along this site is just really the wholesale lack of connectivity that exists. There's actually about 3.5 miles between existing walks, and even those existing walks at Redemption Church and this Board of Realtors business up here, they're just short little pieces that exist there now. There's several other, within our vicinity of AWG, there's several other newer businesses, maybe a renovation, that don't have sidewalks that contribute to that connectivity. And more importantly, I guess one of the bigger reasons for the request for the variance is safety considerations. The first one I wanted to touch on is the Food Safety Modernization Act. This act in and of itself, it's really not about sidewalks. It's more about preventing foodborne illnesses. But, the client, they need to protect their storage of food, so they will keep their site fully fenced. It's not for public access, or, they don't want the public walking back in there, and being close to their site. It will be fully fenced. And that's just, again, to protect what they're storing, protect the food. Not a single product is sold directly out of this facility to the public. It's distributed to different grocery chains. Furthermore, on the whole safety topic, it was kind of touched on earlier. If we were to do the sidewalks where they're being requested or required along 51, the entry road, it's about a mile or so. It's just under a mile sidewalks, I think. And being in this isolated area, the concern is that people are going to come down here, park their car, or drop their kids off, or whatever the case might be. You got this isolated kind of like little park of sidewalks where people are going to want to recreate, and then they're doing that around all this semi-truck traffic. And again, that's something we really don't want to mix, all the semi-truck traffic and the pedestrians in this area. So some of these other points on the board right here, we're going to touch on further in some of these other slides. And John's going to touch on some of that.
Thanks, Andrew. Hi, my name is Jarman Paragoy. I'm with Kinley Horn. I'm the civil engineer for this project. Kinley Horn, we work a lot with Pittman across the country. We have our offices out in Memphis. We do a lot of work in DeSoto County, a lot of distribution centers, and we're very excited about the project, and we're happy to be here tonight to make this presentation to you. As Andrew was talking about the safety, the existing conditions on the Highway 51, it's a rural cross section. It's a very high speed, 55 mile per hour speed limit with 2 lanes of pavement, very narrow shoulders, and then we slope steeply down to a set of roadside ditches. I think to help answer Alderman McClendon's question earlier about why do subdivisions not have sidewalks on the right of way, Highway 51 right of way, it's because Ndot doesn't want them in the right of way. We have talked to Brian Childs. He's the assistant district engineer for District 2, and he told us, and you can see his quote on the board, that any sidewalk would have to be be off of the Ndot right of way in this area. Doesn't necessarily mean you can't build on the frontage. It just means you cannot have them in that right of way. So, we looked at what that would. The next slide. Yeah. So on this slide here, you can see that when we pull the sidewalks along the frontage of the properties on 51, we have moved them well over 50 feet beyond the edge of the pavement, beyond the edge of the roadside ditch, and we simply can't access them. We have property constraints at both the north and south end. The north end, we have Hurricane Creek with a very narrow bridge that's just barely wide enough for 2 cars to pass. Absolutely no room for pedestrians to walk on. And on the south end, you have I-269. The photos here, these were taken a couple of days ago out at the site. It's a little hard to see because the roadside ditch is so overgrown, but you essentially have to either walk from the Hurricane Creek Bridge all the way down to the entrance to access the sidewalks, or you have to walk down this very steep terrain through an overgrown ditch, and then come onto the private property to access the sidewalks that ultimately don't go anywhere. As we look at just typical industrial parks and again, planning, our firm, we do work in industrial parks all over the country, and they're isolated from other uses. They're away from pedestrian activities. You want to avoid those conflicts of pedestrians crossing heavily traveled routes, whether they be vehicles or semi-trucks. As you can see here, the entrance road, which will be a public road, has a cul-de-sac at the very end of it. At the end of the cul-de-sac, all of AWG's employees and truck traffic will be entering the highway, and they will be taking an immediate left. And we're talking almost 700 cars and 550 trucks per day that are coming in and out at that cul-de-sac. That is not designed as a stop condition. That's not how cul-de-sacs are designed. It's just a turnaround. So we have a real concern with the potential pedestrian and truck and car conflicts at that intersection. We want to keep the trucks moving. We don't want them to slow down. We need the trucks in the lot, going to the guardhouse, dropping product, picking up product, getting back out of the road. That's AWG's business model. They have to keep the product moving. We can't have these pinch points and stops, and we have designed the site to have 2,000 feet of trailer stacking and storage to route them through the guardhouse. That will not back up on the city street. So we have that constant movement. And while we're only looking at the COD right now for AWG on this single 240 acre parcel, we did look at the future build out because AWG ultimately wants to sell off the out parcels, and our estimated traffic at the intersection of the new road and Highway 51 is over 2,200 vehicles per day. Again, lots of traffic moving in and out of that site every day. In regards to the new city road design, initially the city was slated to design and construct that road for AWG's use. That was their access from Highway 51. I worked with the city engineer. We talked through the plan design section, which was a rural cross section, 2 lanes, shoulders, gravel shoulders, and then roadside ditches without sidewalks. We changed direction slightly, mainly due to timing, and Tittman is using that insurance as their construction insurance. So we wanted to go ahead. We took over the design, Tittman Horn did, just to allow Tittman to get out there and start building that road base. But ultimately, the city is going to build that road and own that road. It's a public road. And we designed it based on that original cross section, that rural cross section with roadside ditches and without sidewalks. We took note of some items in the ordinance where cul-de-sac roads don't have to have sidewalks, and a cul-de-sac road is a road with a dead end and a turnaround. That's what we have here. Now, there is language that a cul-de-sac can only be 500 feet long. This is 1,500 feet long. So a little contradiction there with the ordinance. But as you start looking around town, there are numerous cul-de-sacs that are 1,500 feet long, some longer, some shorter, but many of them are over 500 feet minimum. So our design, and again, we work hand in hand with the city engineer, meets the intent of what was originally planned by the city to build here, and is consistent with other cul-de-sacs outside of residential areas in industrial areas. The last item I want to point out is just future consideration. Again, AWG, they're dividing land. They have 80 acres of prime real estate on Highway 51. This is not going to be a single 1 million square foot building. We will have more buildings out here in the future. And constructing sidewalks inside that future property, that is very likely going to be incompatible with these future site designs. The site is low, they're gonna have to come in and rip it all out to build it up, so they're not losing acres of unusable frontage. Not that they won't put the sidewalks back in, but why are we building sidewalks that can't be accessed today, only to be torn out and put back in later? In addition, we also have Ndot's long-range infrastructure plan. We know improvements to Highway 51 are coming. We don't know when, but we know they're coming. And how does that play into impacts to sidewalks that are built now and not deferred until we have a better understanding of the ally development and Ndot's overall plan for Highway 51 and the city's plan for Highway 51. But we're not here today to argue the ordinance. We're here to talk about safety concerns and just how applicable a sidewalk along 51 inside the property that is not really accessible today. And we recognize the value of the city of Hernando's codes and ordinance, and we're here because there's sometimes these unique projects with unique circumstances when a variance is warranted. For the AWG project, we've discussed several of these unique aspects that support the need for a sidewalk variance here. And these include safety concerns for pedestrian and heavy traffic on the new road, lack of access to the sidewalks constructed along 51, and potential conflicts with sidewalks constructed now and future developments. And we want to be real clear that our team in AWG, we're not opposed to safe pedestrian routes or the costs associated with constructing these amenities. Safety is our top concern. And to show our commitment to the community of Hernando, we've discussed an alternate with Aldermen McLendon, and I'd like to propose that to you guys tonight. But this alternate, in lieu of the sidewalks, AWG is committed to future participation in the Coldwater River Native Conservancy Greenway project. They want to be an active participant in the community. They want to help spend money on infrastructure, safe pedestrian routes that benefit the community, benefit AWG. They want to work with the city and help build this green line and help work with that conservatory group. This green line, as it's currently planned, would run along the west and north ends of the site, out away from the highway, out away from the truck traffic, but it has that connectivity that the city is looking for in their master plan. So again, just as an alternate, with support of the variance, AWG is committed to that project, to helping support the Greenway. Right now, taking questions from the mayor or alderman. We love to hear the public speak, and I would love to have a response from the public portion of this.
And you said that's the only alternative that you proposed, is the one that you talked with Alderman McLendon about?
Yes, sir.
That's the only one that you want to put? I'm asking a question.
Well, that's what we were.
I'm just asking for the
Yes, sir.
a yes or no question.
Yes.
So that's the only alternative that you proposed to go?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
If we were to consider an alternative, could it be a fee in lieu of that, instead of the money being spent only on that greenway, we could use the money for other infrastructure purposes in the city and not be tied to just that project?
You say you don't have no proposal like that, I just asked that question.
No,
So
well, maybe I misunderstood.
I actually have no other alternative. You just said greenway.
this is the Greenway project is much more attractive to AWG because it's at their property line. It's it will help them attract other businesses to the outline. And it keeps sidewalks from being constructed and having those pedestrians, it eliminates those safety concerns.
So we could use that money.
No, this ain't what- I'm kind of, no, but he said, AWG would only consider using on the greenway to affect their property.
And I heard that, and I am asking, would you consider, instead of only using the money for that one purpose, give us the money to use on other infrastructure needs in the city, and we'll deal with that greenway project as it comes.
Yeah, and to clarify, the alternate that we're proposing was the one that we discussed. We're open to other suggestions.
I mean, you just made the comment cost was not a factor.
Right, so,
Correct?
yes, that's right. And Mike is gonna help.
So you will consider other options.
But I'm lame, but I ain't too lame.
Reconstruct today,
Do what?
reconstruct today and everything we talked about. There's been a lot of things we talked about this afternoon, internal of our group. Alderman Miller, I did mention the idea of the greenway to the mayor earlier today. So there have been two people that have been posed with the idea, not the recommendation. We don't know enough about it. But we've taken a pretty hard look at the Coldwater River Nature Conservancy Greenway today. Its cost, its distance, everything is involved. That line falls right in behind our ramp, between us and the rail on the west side and us and the creek on the north side. It's a perfect area to help accomplish something the city and the area wants to accomplish in a nature conservancy. I think they call it a bike pad in that route. We've also got about 30 acres of land that is in a floodplain at the northern end of our property that we could also look at part of that for the conservancy that you won't normally find. I think we are open to anything that has viability as long as we know what the use is. But the reason it fits so well at this site is helping you achieve something that your senator and other people, your US senator, have been trying to achieve in the development of this greenway. And we're simply suggesting we'd like to become a partner in that and help develop it, fund our portion within means of what we have talked about from our sidewalk construction, and in a number to be determined based on additional discussions. It's by no means trying to avoid anything except what we feel is so important from the safety aspect of this. We certainly deal with so many communities, with so many ordinances, and projects of this magnitude frequently require some type of exception somewhere, because they're so much bigger than what you can see. So we're not trying to avoid anything, we're trying to help and provide a better service for something we think you're trying to achieve. If we do a so-called fee in lieu of, we have no idea what the use of that is, or where it is, and how does it help that area that we're talking about from a long-term sustainability conservancy.
I mean, we can work something out where definitely the greenway would be done on your project in the future. I mean, we got a lot of options here. Our whole goal is.
We have had a call this afternoon with our general counsel and our executive vice president at AWG, and they've advised us, Andrew, myself, and Jarman, to make this offer, to bring the right people to the table to talk about anything you want to talk about from that aspect. We do not think the sidewalks are a good idea in this instance for this site. We're trying to provide another feasible means of financial assistance and public awareness and public safety from that standpoint. We could have a team here next week.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If we were to consider this Coldwater Conservatory project, how would people access that? Where does it tie in Like, you know, we're talking about, you know, the safety issue of sidewalks.
Have you seen the route of it on?
Probably at some point.
It's been a while.
We saw it today for the first time.
I mean, I've been in some of those meetings and stuff, but I don't.
It starts at Nesbitt Road and then runs down along the east side of the creek. And then it comes straight, right behind, NWG's property, crosses under 269. It has a leg that continues south, and then it also has a leg that, heads over towards the crossroads seafood.
And let me go ahead and ask finish this, and then I'll defer, but, again, where are they supposed to get on this trail? I mean, you look at it, where, do they park somewhere? Where is that? How do they get to it?
There would be trailheads. As Mike said, we got a copy of it right before the meeting, so we can review it. We saw the routes along our property line along the creek that continue east. There were no access points on, I don't remember seeing any access points on that 240 acres. I believe there's access from Nesbitt Road and south of 269.
And under that scenario is, as we understand what we saw just a couple of hours ago, it's about 16.1 miles that will be developed at a current number of about $17.5 million. We need to study this whole route a great deal more to understand it, but our property would still be fenced, and this beltway access would be between us and the railroad in that instance, or between us and the creek on the north side. We still got to protect under our federal requirements inside the fence of our building.
And then the right of way too, I'm sure that's.
Yes, ma'am. I think it's 75 feet.
We're required by code to maintain a 75-foot conservation buffer. And it's for future maintenance of the slope along Hurricane Creek. So there is a 75-foot strip of land right now that is not going to be developed by code.
I have one other one, but it's not pertaining to this. I'll let Alderman know. Well, getting back to, the sidewalks on 51 and future potential expansion. If, and this may be our own folks, I don't know who can answer this for me, but if indeed we do require sidewalks and Ndot does expand over there and the sidewalks are having to be moved or removed, whose responsibility is that to put those sidewalks back? If Ndot, you know.
Ndot won't allow you to build it on there right away.
Those things like that have come up a couple of times, like the red lights at Pleasant Hill and 51. They do have a design and we do all that. That was a question that came up. Should we do it or should we wait? You never know the funding.
Yeah.
Mackinville Road, that was the debate with Ndot, the commissioners. What happens if we widen Mackinville? Now we got linear park.
Yeah.
If the money's not there right now and it's right there, you never know when it's gonna happen. I mean, I ain't saying that.
I'm with I answer. They just bypass. Ndot do not want us in there on the right of way. If those streets, sidewalks are constructed on their property, and Ndot come in and destroy the sidewalk, Ndot will be required to replace those. Okay? As long as it's not in their right of way. Anything Ndot tear up and destroy, they will replace. So that should not be an issue on the widening of the road. Because Ndot is just saying, don't put them out right of way, not to put them up. In the same argument that you made earlier about accessibility, but you were all in agreement for the greenway and no accessibility on that. But yet and still you in favor of that. I'm talking to, I forget the name. In your presentation, yes, you talked about inaccessibility due to existing terrain, but you're in support of the greenway, and the greenway is inaccessible from anywhere.
So the greenway, and we're,
Am I correct? It's inaccessible. because it had not been constructed. And so it's inaccessible because it had not been constructed on either side, either north or south of that property. The same argument that you use on Highway 51 for not using streets because no other streets had been what? Constructed. So they make this piece of property and you put them up. So it's the same thing.
Well, we're not proposing to construct the greenway on our property, we're proposing to contribute to that overall project.
It was the same principle though.
Well, so looking at the plan, one phase of the green line would be extending from Nesbit Road to 269, so it would be accessible from Nesbit Road and there's a path from
And I think Alderman, you've seen the plan, I think, you see it all on Highway also, we were just on those meetings.
Yeah.
And we talking about how many years, 20-year build out?
Yeah.
So it might be 20 years before.
But he said there would be like a parking pad possibly, but the problem is, you gotta go over Hurricane Creek.
Well, that's part of, that, what I saw as one leg, I think it was, the GL7 started at Nesbit Road and extended south, crossing Hurricane Creek, south under 269.
So my point is this, they don't want to have an alternative where that we do a fee and loop in the city be at the discretion on where to use that for sidewalk on the as needed basis within the city, will won't be a 15 to 20 years before something is used or accessible. But they don't want to do that though.
Alderman,
I mean, that's, you know, I'm about thinking.
let's please correct something here. I think we said very clearly, we've seen the Greenway document for 2 hours. We don't know what the answers are. We've offered that as an alternative. I've also said to Alderman Harris, we'll consider anything as viability. You said fee and lieu law.
But that ain't what I heard, remember, you wanted to be on your site, opposed to the.
It's not on our site, sir.
I'm talking about accessible to, you know, if we can go back and play back.
No, I'm saying the
We can go back
Greenway
and
is
play
not.
back, you talking about that you want it close to the AWG property.
The green line as a whole benefits AWG with that connectivity.
The thing about the green line is just way down the road.
You talking about 15, 20 years, I might be.
That's why I asked the question, and thank you for answering it, that would you consider?
Yes, we said we
You
would.
answered yes.
We don't have the answer on
So-
the Greenway.
I think the concern was, like, AWG is willing to look at other alternatives. They just wanted to be able to participate, you know, instead of doing the walks along 51, be able to participate in something that they know, like, that they could be a part of. You know, hey, we helped do this over here, or this over there, and it wouldn't just go into a black box.
You want to send a signal to the community that you want to be part of the community,
Yeah,
and you're
that's
willing to
right.
step up and do something to help the city.
That's right, that's what it's all about. And
And you thought the Greenway was a good answer.
Yeah.
If you determine that the longevity of it and the timing is just not workable, let's look at other alternatives.
Yeah.
We said Greenway because we thought that was the answer.
I'm
We don't know.
I'm finished.
I got a few things.
Agree. I got a question.
Go ahead,
Why
Mike.
can't the greenway become a reality? Why do we have to put smaller other projects? I mean, this greenway, how much did it cost for this study that was done? Do y'all remember?
It was $100,000 grant from CB Smith's office, if I remember
So where
correctly.
did grants come from? Taxes, correct?
They came from taxpayers of this whole nation, not just here.
Correct. $100,000 was spent on this study. And we've got somebody willing to offer, I believe I heard the number, whatever the price of the sidewalks we're talking, for them. They're willing to go from Nesbit Road to I-69. That's almost 3 miles.
That was not said, that was not stated.
That was not said.
That was not said.
That was not stated.
They are willing to start a project that this city continues to push back.
What he
We finally
said,
got someone that wants
We don't
to
even
start a
know
project for us.
what he
We
said,
got Renaissance Park, that's just sitting out there, gonna start new ball fields, new ball fields, new ball fields. Is it done? No, I didn't start it.
but we can't get opinions
You've
for
got a
park.
group, you've got a group that wants to start a project and be successful now. We're talking about walking around their properties, so it's connected to their property.
This is something like it.
So yeah, we want to go and take their money and go spend carte blanche, put it in a general fund.
No, that's what I said about.
Nobody said anything about money yet, Mike. Money has not been mentioned.
No, you said a fee in lieu.
Correct, but no money has been mentioned.
A fee in lieu would to go to do what?
For streets and for sidewalk,
Streets.
for sidewalk,
Sidewalk.
sidewalk in the city. The city of Hernando, who you represent?
We didn't make those 4 subdivisions do it. But you got somebody offering to do it. But yet, if you're gonna tell me, that's wrong, that's not hijack what you're doing.
Yeah, then they would go.
Your opinion.
Not my opinion, that's the public's opinion.
Call a lawyer then, if I'm hijacking. Have me arrested.
No.
Mike Bruce.
No, you're not to.
Anybody else from the board?
Yes, that question.
Jeff's got a question.
Have y'all estimated the cost of those sidewalks from getting your property to, I guess it would be the bridge?
At what we would call a very high preliminary range, yes.
And y'all are, I was looking at your reasonings, why they shouldn't do it, and one of the bridge was one of them. That bridge is eventually going to have to be replaced sooner than later. They'll widen that bridge, and you said there's no connectivity. There would be connectivity if, I mean, I know on this, on the Keith's staff report, we got some pictures. And I want to say it's one of you guys, y'all made some examples. And the examples were, why should we have to put a sidewalk there, but you didn't make so-and-so and so-and-so put a sidewalk there? Well, that's exactly why you need to put a sidewalk there, because we don't need another company or developer coming in the city and saying, hey, you didn't make AWG put a sidewalk. I mean, I really don't understand why the store and Crossroads don't have a sidewalk, but, that's another discussion. But there's an ordinance out there where they should have. I really don't know why they didn't. I don't know if it's Ndot, I really don't know. Keith Mike can answer that.
I can, Alderman Hobbs, so the reliable equipment, which is the Kubota dealership at 250 Highway 51 North, that project was approved with the requirement that the project be compliant with the design standards guideline. There are no sidewalks constructed along Highway 51. I've looked through the planning commission records and I can find no indication of a variance granted to reliable equipment. The Crossroads Seafoods was started and approved prior to me getting here, so I came into the middle of it. But my professional opinion is a mess, that particular project. The Amtel Express, which is the BP station, that project was approved without sidewalks, and that one is on me. I made 2 mistakes with sidewalks. I've learned from those. I've told you guys when you hired me, if I make a mistake, I will admit it, I will learn from it, and try not to repeat it. I'm trying not to repeat it.
But I guess my point is, if these mistakes were made, if we didn't have these mistakes, it would connect. It would connect over to Green Tea. And Green Tea goes down to Memphis Street. And we got sidewalks down Memphis Street. The whole purpose of us putting sidewalks in, we understand some of them are not going to connect. We understand that. 40 years from now, when we're not here, maybe you guys might be here, but when we're not here, eventually they will connect. And I think is Gia still here? I mean, I think she can speak for us. How do we get these grants for these sidewalks and all the healthy grants we get from like, Blue Cross, Blue Shield? How do we obtain these grants?
One of the ways we get those grants is to show our efforts in promoting a healthy lifestyle, and that is through sidewalks, pedestrian and bicycle access. And that is correct. We just from my perspective, being a citizen here and also working for the city, people and businesses have said, well, why do I have to put a sidewalk to nowhere? Because at some point in time, it will not be to nowhere. It will be connected. And that's what we're seeing all across Commerce Street now. That at some point there were sidewalks that were not connecting, and today you actually see crosswalks. We now have a crosswalk with a light, a traffic light, and that's used all the time. And they're all connecting, so it's been a really good thing for the community.
You know, I do understand your reasoning. I see the safety issue, with all the traffic. I mean, people's got to cross where, how many vehicles are coming in today, ingressing.
Yeah.
A lot.
Upwards of 2,200 when it's filled out.
And I can see that. And the reason I ask you, you know, what is the cost of this sidewalk? Would you be willing to use that money? I mean, we just talked about the greenway. Put that same over on the opposite side, connect that, get over the creek, come down your property, and come up and connect behind Crossroads over there. I don't know what the cost would be, but it wouldn't have to be a concrete sidewalk either. It would be part of the greenway.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah, the greenway.
And maybe the offset, the difference, we would still get what we want, because we would have something to connect from Nesbitt all the way up to Memphis Street. You understand what I mean? Versus people walking down 51.
The Nesbitt piece of it was, right around 2.1, 2.2 million. That was from Nesbitt to take it south of 269. Again, that was the number we pulled from the report.
That's the entire greenway.
That was just the one section. That was,
The entire greenway is like $20 million.
yeah, it's
17.6.
Yeah.
So, and that was our, yeah, the greenways to us felt like a great alternate. I live in Carterville and used to live in Germantown, but the greenway system that they built there is great. You know, that's what I use when I used to exercise. But the sidewalks, yes, they're not going to be used for a long time. They're constructed along 51. They're not going to be used, but they're going to be placed inside the property limits. And I've looked at some preliminary grading scenarios to see how we would balance those sites and how they work. We have to rip those right back out to really get the most buildable square footage on those outlots.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, not against them on 51, but it doesn't make sense to AWG to build a sidewalk when they're sitting 1,500 feet back from the road, and they're selling those off. They're gonna have to build those up, fill them up, and they're gonna have to rip it out and put it back in. That's the main underlying issue with sidewalks on 51. The fact that they're not accessible, that's just, I mean, we get that.
But my point is like I said, I understand your argument. I definitely understand it. But I think you understand ours as well. And to me, the whole objective is so people can walk by throughout our whole town, and eventually everything will connect. And if you're willing to spend that same amount of money, whatever the cost is for the sidewalks that's gonna be in the front, you put it behind you to that greenway, I think it's a win-win for all of us if we did that.
And that was, again, the greenway, that felt like
But then you could go from Memphis Street, you could go from Nesbitt all the way to, I guess it would be the railroad bridge, or the soccer field. I'm not sure exactly how far Memphis Street goes down and the sidewalks, but there would be a lot of connectivity there, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
you get a little more bang for your buck if you do the greenway versus the concrete sidewalk.
Right, but we definitely got issues with Crossroads and the store down here, and Like I said, I understand your argument, and I think the compromise would be great. I'm not sure these aldermen would agree with that, but.
And I've got an issue. You've got 80 acres up there that you don't know what's going there. You have no idea. We don't know what's going there. We don't know what the requirements are gonna be for those. It could be parking lots, it could be sidewalks. But sidewalks, if they're put in at that point, then the taxpayers are gonna have to pay for it. We've been down this road many, many times, and we always seem to get kicked in the butt in the end. So I'd like to know, and I know you don't even know what's going to be there. You don't have any, but you got 80 acres there that will be developed, and I'm sure it won't be very long before it'll be developed.
Yes, and we understand that, you know, granting that variance without having, having that discussion with AWG about contributing to the green line, we're not trying to avoid the cost. We're trying to avoid putting in sidewalks that we're fairly confident will be removed once those outlets are developed. So we're trying to find that way to, instead of spending the money on these sidewalks that we feel get removed, how can we help? How can we get that money to the city and build other infrastructure?
Something we thought was beneficial now, maybe the timing's not right, I don't know.
We did not know Green Line was gonna be 5 to 20 years.
Yeah,
that was,
I won't walk on it.
You could walk on it.
I doubt it,
You're getting an opportunity to walk on it right here.
If we started it in this, like he's talking,
Of a lifetime.
it would be, I mean, within the next 3 years, this development's finished, and that green line could be constructed within the next 3 years with y'all's.
Y'all need to think about one thing, if you, in that, there'd have to be a lot of detail done to that. There'd have to be right-of-ways given by them for the construction of that. Understand that that's all conceptual. It's the first I heard of
15,
it.
20 years, I'm talking about the next 2 or 3 years, you're gonna be developing those lots up there. You're not gonna sit on those lots. It's gonna be high-priced lots when you get that grocery in there.
We will not develop those lots until we are close to finish with the construction of the main building, because we don't know if we need it to lay down area or something else. And we don't want to jeopardize anything, but I think you are correct. It would be in the next,
For the money we set aside today, in today's dollars, 10 years from now, we need to build half the sidewalks. People have to come up with that money too. I just don't see it.
So, let me ask one more question.
Yes, sir.
Does this board of aldermen foresee more traffic on a greenway with bikes, dog walking, pedestrian traffic? Or would they see it rather, hey, let's go down to AWG and walk on the sidewalk in front down there?
Well, I know what the people in my ward want. My telephone has been ringing off the wall ever since this got leaked out in the community, and I know they want sidewalks.
Mike, people
I know that. That's my
are
job.
not gonna go to AWG to walk on the sidewalk. That is not a concern that I have from a safety issue. The safety issue is that we're gonna have 2,200 vehicles running up and down.
That's right.
2.5 miles of Highway 51, it's not wide enough to support it today, a narrow bridge. That's the safety issue. The safety issue is not people riding bicycles or walking on the AWG sidewalk, in my opinion. I just can't see that there's gonna be people dropping their children off at AWG or parking there. Where are they gonna park a vehicle along that stretch of road?
Well, Doc, I think what Mike's trying to say is, let's trade the front sidewalk to the back sidewalk and build it.
Hey, I am.
And build it from Nesbitt all the way around to behind Crossroads, and it's got connectivity.
I'm in full agreement that makes good sense. What I'm hung up with on that is, how much money are they gonna commit to do that, number one? Because that's not gonna be cheap. It's gonna cost more to do that than it is to put sidewalks in
Oh, I don't think
on the
so.
property. Where does Memphis Street end? You were talking about that earlier. Memphis Street, I think, ends right there behind
Crossroads.
It ends at
Crossroads, if I'm not
I-69.
mistaken, right there. That's,
So you gonna talk to?
so you're gonna start on the
They're gonna
north.
come under 69 and come down the side of it, back behind Crossroads.
That's how you gonna talk
You're gonna come under 69?
That's where the railroad track comes, isn't that correct? That's where it would connect.
Correct.
You would have to go under.
Yeah, but the one that's right now.
There's a bridge there.
What?
He's gonna approve us going under 69.
We have to keep that from him, Don, and you know, look at your name,
You sure will?
It would be the same.
Well, the cold water, what do we call it?
I wrote down the Coldwater Green Lawn Conservatory Project.
Yeah, well, that's the way it is. I mean, that's the exact trail that it takes, and it goes the exact route.
I'm not opposed to any of that. I think it's all great thinking on our part. I just took a shot back in mind, because safety is not gonna be people walking up and down.
Yeah, well, it
Safety-
appears, you can put berms in there, and you can fix the safety issue, it's the crosswalk. That's the big problem, I see. 2,200 vehicles coming in and out.
There's a safety issue.
That's the problem, and I can see that.
Yeah. How can we,
There
you
is gonna be a traffic
guys
light.
need to COD?
Well,
Yeah, there's gonna be a there is gonna be a traffic light there. Y'all don't miss that. There's gonna be a traffic light there. That's already, the county's gonna put a light there. So there'll be ways for pedestrians to cross the street.
Widening the 51 though, right? Is it like gonna come before the widening of the 51?
No, this ain't, this is what the when the county puts in the turn lane, the deceleration lane, they've agreed to put in the light. They know that. They can say
That
that.
green tick.
Not green tea.
No, at Casey Drive or whatever they're gonna call it, AWG.
Where the problem, where all those 2,200 vehicles.
He knows that. Hell, yeah.
Where the access road is going in.
You know that. But he gonna get up like that.
not enough benefit.
Mary, are there gonna be two traffic lights, one where you're coming out with all of the trucks and that, and then another one at Green Tea?
No.
There's only gonna be one light
At the entrance road.
at your entrance road.
Yes.
Okay, because I think a lot of people that I know of, we all thought was gonna be
Just
Green
big-
Tea.
I think that's what you're gonna say, it's done, but it ain't gonna be. Well, that's what it said. It's not gonna be the last one.
They told me.
We're willing to work
They would be
together.
able to-
Oh, yeah, with what's going on here. I think we all want the best for the community. So, I mean, it's a very difficult situation. I'd really like to see the ordinance reviewed on sidewalk, things like that. It's gonna be hard for us to negotiate all this out tonight.
I hope so.
But we know you did the COD.
Yeah, we gotta have a COD. I mean, the COD is important to you and us for many reasons.
Right, I understand that. So,
How about this? I mean, I don't know, I haven't had a chance to talk to the city attorney. I don't know the answer to this. What if we do this, and I don't know if the city attorney has, if the board has the power. I don't know. What if we agree to sit down and negotiate something in a number that you can use? I still think the greenway is a great idea. I just don't have any understanding of the viability of the length of it in terms of getting it done. I think it's a super idea. This city wants to move. It's kind of like this city decided they want to be in the industrial business too. And here you are, one of the biggest projects around. You made that commitment. But how about this? We'll sit down and negotiate a number that can be contributed to your welfare in terms of additional sidewalks elsewhere. And we will agree that when our out parcels are designed and city planner, I think, will be platted, when they're platted, that the future use of those sidewalks would deal, future use of those two lots would deal with sidewalks.
For those two lots.
Yes, sir. You win both ways. not sure what the terminology is, but.
Well, first of all, we can't just do that and negotiate later.
No, here's what I'm thinking.
I've heard the number 400,000 and I've heard the number 500,000 from, in different meetings for the sidewalks. And it may be some other number, those are the two numbers I've heard. But, and I think Alderman Hobbs has tried to get a firm number, I hadn't heard that expressed yet. But if they want to do something like that, you could do an order and they would agree to, and they said money's not the issue, so I assume whatever that number is, they would contribute that. That, you could do that, but you couldn't do it and say, well, we'll negotiate later, because that's not fair to the citizens. It's not fair to the city. It's not even fair to them. I mean, what if we come up with a number of $1 million? You know, they're not gonna like that number. So what the number is what it should be tonight. And I agree with what Alderman Hayden said, is that, you know, the reality is whatever you accept today won't do in today's dollars what it'll do, you know, future years. But, you know, I don't think you can say, okay, well, we'll do this and negotiate later. That is not going to work. And that's not how we've been doing this up to this point. You know, up to this point, we've tried to have things lined up. I didn't know anything about this Greenway until I was sitting here tonight. And I mean, I've heard about the conceptual plan, but there's been a study apparently done on it. I don't know of any dedicated right-of-way or anything like that for that. So if you did that and you took that money, but nothing else ever connected, or they never did set it, you know, the United States, the state of Mississippi, and cities everywhere have spent a lot of money on studies, and they're collecting dust on ships. If you don't have right-of-ways, you don't have the location, you're talking about going across private property for most of that stuff, or along private property. You know, sometimes the cost gets in the way. So it sounds like a good idea conceptually, and I'm not throwing water on it. I'm just saying that, remember, there's nothing there. That's just a study.
Like I said, I think everybody's willing to agree. I don't know if this will work, Q, but how about we get a motion to require the sidewalks on his property, but so he can get the COD. And with also the stipulations that we're willing to negotiate alternative.
I don't think you need to do that. I mean, I don't think you can, I think that's not legal. You can't condition something on something to be done in the future. You can either deny or accept it, or if they've got an alternative for some type of fee in lieu, I think under the home rule statute, we could do that.
Mayor, I'd like to try to suggest an alternative that will allow us to get the COD and we can deal with the sidewalks later.
Yes.
We'd like to request a variance for the sidewalks on the new road. And we'll concede the sidewalks on 51 tonight, and then we can have a further discussion, and we can clarify that later on. We'll get to the subdivision process.
I mean, that's changing the whole, you're running the horse in a different direction now.
All we're doing is asking for a variance on the sidewalks on the new road.
The entry road.
On the entry road. We will leave the sidewalks on 51. I believe that when we go through the subdivision plat process, that will put the requirement to build sidewalks on who develops those animals. So we're still getting the sidewalks on 51, we're just getting variance for the new road.
And then I need to come back to the planning commission, because that wasn't what we.
Hang on, yeah.
The application, for the variance is submitted to you as the site as a whole.
That's right.
The certificate of development requires sidewalks to be on Highway 51 and the access road. That's why the variance application was presented to you. All of my findings and recommendations are based on the site as a whole. Having said that, I still would recommend denial of the request, because that's still giving them a special, and they're getting an advantage out of it that other people will not get if they follow the rules like they should.
Our response to that is when the city was building this road, and Mr. Lauderdale could correct me if I'm wrong, but sidewalks, I don't believe sidewalks are planned on the new entry road when the city was designing it. That original section where the city pulled the cost for the incentive package. I don't believe sidewalks were included in that. And we're just asking, because we're now taking that through, we have sidewalks. So we'd like the sidewalks to be removed from the public road, and we believe that we want to.
On that cul-de-sac, how many entrances? Are there gonna be future entrances? Or there just one, or? I'm talking about on that road, that 1,500, and you say it's 1,500?
1,500 feet, the current plan, you head straight west, there's an entrance into the AWP site, and if you turn left, there's a entrance, but that's the main entrance. We expect at least two more, either side, one on either side, maybe midpoint, maybe a little further, maybe a little closer, depends on how it develops, but at least one per outline.
And you don't think your employees in lunchtime would want to use the sidewalks for exercise, or?
If they're inside the fence required, under the requirements of food administration. Plus, we have facilities inside the fence. Because of that, because of the fence. I don't know what the legal approach is. We've offered to provide money for your fee in lieu of, as you said, and to make sure that the sidewalks are built and the two parcels are developed. Now, if that can't be approved as such, I'm not sure why. Still, it's a single parcel. And I think you have the latitude to make that decision. And if we don't develop, I'm not seeing, we're yielding a lot because we support this community. We thought Greenway was the answer. If it's not, it's not.
The beauty of the internet. The proposed cost, estimated cost, just so everybody here knows, everybody. Proposed cost, approximate cost, to go from US, or from basically what you were talking about, on from Nesbitt down to 69, 2.117, $2,117,000 for that stretch.
That's the number we presented earlier.
We presented earlier. If we got it right off the record.
Yeah, we pulled off the same document that the city attorney pulled.
Yeah, but Kenny, I mean, they were talking about cost. I was gonna let Alderman Hobbs know the costs would be over.
Give us a suggestion, or attorney, how to give them the COD and be able to figure something out here.
It's up to y'all. I mean, that's up to.
I mean, with the legality.
Well, I mean, I get this, and Mr. Mullis said, he said the number to be determined, and I wrote it down and put it in quotes. I mean, I don't know how you could determine that. They know what the projected cost of the sidewalks are.
We know, number one, Mr. Mayor and Alderman, very high level, but we'll give you that number.
Whatever the number.
But we don't know what that number is.
No, we don't, but.
Okay, well, if they don't know the number, then that won't help us.
You haven't done the engineering yet, therefore.
That's what I'm saying. If they don't know the number, it wouldn't help us. If they knew the number, that could help us.
Joe Franklin, what would you estimate the cost of that sidewalk to be along the access road and along 51 Highway?
Hurry up. That's silly, sir. Well, why can't we require the sidewalks and still have a negotiation after?
Well, I guess if we can do that.
Does that make sense?
Can we, I hear what you're saying, Mayor, could we also not just say, we grant the variance for the new road, we deny the variance for 51, and then we can talk.
We can do that. But if we,
If
we deny the variance on the access road, whatever the cost of that sidewalk that should be there according to our ordinances, I think the city should, maybe do the fee in lieu with that particular, that funding there.
Alderman Hobbs will give you our current estimate. Right at $200,000.
That's
300? 200 for the access road.
So you would spend $2 million on the greenway?
No, sir.
No.
No, sir.
we were,
No, sir.
You said you would negotiate
I
a
said
number
it'd be a
to be
problem.
contributed to the sidewalk. We didn't have a number at that point. Then Kenny estimated it'd be $2
Well,
million.
No, I just got,
we wanted to make a contribution. We weren't gonna build that whole project. We wanted to make a contribution that was
Put the money in
equitable,
there and-
that was equitable to the amount of sidewalks we were in.
Well, so much has come up just in the last few hours, it's new to everybody.
Yeah.
I
In the
mean,
last 3 hours.
I'm all in favor of negotiating, I don't vote, but to work something out. But
We have an estimate, it is high. We haven't done the engineering
stuff.
on the access road. It's just a little shy of $200,000, like $192,000 today's number. We will work with you, what you would turn on leave a fee in lieu of. You could spend that elsewhere for connectivity.
I don't have a problem with that.
And we will agree that in the future development, once we subdivide the main parcel, that will be under the regulations of the ordinances and subdivision required for good
would you still be willing to negotiate?
to negotiate, not gonna go.
No, yeah, to negotiate.
All in.
Have the development of those parcels do that.
They would be under rules and regulations of the city.
Of the sidewalk, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a given for the 2 parcels. Yes, sir. And hopefully by that time, we see something from MoDOT that's doing some further improvement on 51. We've got better clarity of what we're going to build.
All the bridges gonna be
Well,
repaired,
let's
replaced.
hear what we can do legally.
Because the site has been submitted as a single site development,
One
and
site.
the ordinance requires sidewalk on Highway 51 and the access road. If you overturn the planning commission's denial of that variance request for the access road only, because Highway 51 frontage is still a part of the single lot at the time that this variance that portion of the variance would have been upheld, it's also part of the certificate of development. Sidewalks on Highway 51 must be constructed as part of that certificate of development and construction plan approval. So whether they bring a subdivision in tomorrow or next month or 2 years from now, that sidewalk on 51 is part of this variance request. Planning Commission denied the request, says you have to build a sidewalk. They're appealing that decision to you. If you uphold the Highway 51 denial, so that they have to construct the sidewalk, I write the certificate of development accordingly. When they submit the construction plan and they construct the project, those sidewalks have to be constructed because it was part of the certificate of development, which is the approval of the site. It holds no bearing on the subdivision. If you overturn the planning commission's decision and deny the sidewalks on both streets, when they do come back with a subdivision plat, then that carries over and then sidewalks aren't required as part of the plat.
What can we do?
Was that Miss Joe?
They could, yeah, that was the other thing I was gonna mention, they could put up a letter of credit, not a bond, but they could put up a letter of credit for the sidewalk.
Put up a letter of credit. think I'm spending $300 million in credit. I'm sure we can work something through that.
Somebody know, we gotta get a motion to get this passed, because we're all willing to work together.
That, what I
You're
said
not
had
willing,
nothing
so
to
you're
do
not
with
willing
the
to go
building.
ahead and put the sidewalks in, on 51. If we decided tonight, we denied your variance except for the entrance, y'all wouldn't, when you constructed this, is that correct? When they constructed this, they would have to construct the sidewalks.
Yes, because that was part of the development, which is the whole site.
But y'all not willing to do that.
Well, we want that to be on the developers of ground lots because you don't want to put sidewalks in and have to break down. That's why. We are fine with the sidewalks on 51, we just don't want to put them in place.
Alderman, when those two, there'll be only two lots, so they're not gonna be a small subdivision. It's 35 and 55 roughly in the acreage.
Can I ask a question?
They'll be sold as individual sites. And when that site is elevated, then you put the sidewalks in, you don't rip them out later.
Right. We could postpone any of it.
Well, they came up once.
So they still gotta build the sidewalk, but we only have to,
They could put up a letter of credit for the cost of it, which is a bond, but we don't do bonds anymore, we do letter of credit, because we got stung on bonds years ago, and the board made a decision not to do bonds.
Oh, I'm done in the engineering plan. And we approved it with sidewalks and put up a letter for the sidewalk to be constructed when lot 2 and 3 is done. We opposing the planning commission recommendation. But the caveat is, they will not be put in until after lot 2 and 3 is constructed. This is all part of the, but we have a letter on hand. This doesn't make myself plain.
Yes, sir. The one problem is there's not multiple lots. There's a single lot currently.
But we're just asking them to put up a letter of credit right now.
And put up another credit until after construction.
But it would have to be for the cost of the sidewalks back project
But
as a whole.
I'm saying that,
Right.
but they won't be constructed until after the
Or
construction
they
is
could
done.
choose to construct it in phases and be
Right.
released from the letter of credit as
Well,
they
that's what I'm
move
saying.
along.
And so, and he's looking to
Or it could
sell,
reduce.
after construction. And so technically, the sidewalk technically won't be put in until the end, and the other piece of property will probably be sold by then. But we still have a letter up there, and then we can move on. I mean, because we can't piecemeal the rest of it because the thing about it, we won't bring a resolution tonight, correct?
Yes.
And from here, when he said the biggest obstacle, they don't want to construct now and then sell the other two parcels and then rip out.
If you look at the elevation, Alderman.
I'm not disagreeing with this.
No, I'm just explaining.
Yeah. So I'm saying the alternative is that we oppose the recommendation, require the letter, and then they be constructed at the end of construction.
So letter of credit for all sidewalks we're requesting a variance for. Entry road 51. Once the out parcels are developed, the out parcel users or whoever can come back and put in their piece of sidewalk along their frontage.
We're gonna do it for you to do it now. How you get them to do it, that'll be up to you. Ain't that right?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
But then you'll make that part of your deal with them.
It would be
For us,
part of
we
the
gonna be
close,
looking,
that's right.
we'll be looking to you.
That, yeah, defer it to the outlaw owners.
That's our business, that's all.
That's right. It can be a condition of purchase.
That's our part, that's what I'm saying. But then we can move on. Well, I think I'm making sense. I ain't gonna worry about it. I just do this.
Yes.
That'll get us going and we can visit.
What's the cost on the entire thing?
That's why,
Well, that's the,
We don't, it said it's 200,000, what's the cost for the whole thing?
500,000? Is that where you got that number? Jim?
I didn't get
Sidewalks.
he needs third floor.
The flat draw cost for just the sidewalks is 250 to 300 grand for the whole thing. When you got the $400,000 or $500,000 amount, that's
Look, and I just heard that number. I wasn't-
Sure.
yeah.
That was being kicked around early on because there was concern about along 51, what's got to be torn out and the demo trees. So somebody in the meeting said, it could be 400 or 500 grand. But in my experience in construction, the flat raw cost to build sidewalks, just knowing what they are per square foot, like if you're going to go out there, strip the grass off, and roll it tight and prep the sidewalk. For all these walks, it was 250 to 300 grand, which is like $5 to $6 a square foot. Just to do the plain Jane.
And how do you cover inflation on this? Because it's not,
About a mile.
we're looking 300 or
Mile and a half.
3 year down the road.
Well, but what they're doing here, just so you know, the letter of credit is just to make them do the sidewalks. It's not, the letter of credit protects the city and know they're not gonna do this if they just walk off and disappear or something, bankruptcy or something. That's not what we're, the letter of credit is, they will eventually construct the sidewalks. Or have some prospective purchaser or buyer will construct them. As they construct them though, so if the letter of credit was for, let's just say 300,000 for the sake of it, each one of those sidewalks was 100,000 apiece. As one was constructed, they would come to you and ask that the letter be reduced to 200. And when the other one got constructed, it'd be reduced to another 100. When it got built out, then the letter of credit would be released. Just like bonding roads and stuff and subdivisions and sidewalks.
that's all
I
we're
got
doing.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, we're good with that. We're good with that.
I mean, I think that's reasonable. I mean, when I said line of credit, when I said letter of credit, I'm not criticizing the amount of development. That's just a mechanism to protect the city. Now, there's always that risk if, and I know this isn't gonna happen, if something happened to them, we've already been down this road, it might not be enough to build them. We already know that. I don't think that's gonna be the case here.
So the line of credit is just.
Any more discussion?
Just
I
basically
just want to
funding.
clarify one thing, Keith, based on this conversation, there is absolutely nothing that prevents you from giving them the COD when you get it completed, based on what we just discussed.
My understanding is the Board of Parents is about to take an action to uphold the planning commission's denial with the requirement of a bond, letter of credit to ensure the sidewalk.
That's what you would be doing.
And you will issue the COD.
And those
around
conditions
that.
will be put in the COD.
But we need to make sure their numbers are verified by our engineer, not this, or be, this, we want to make sure that the numbers are correct.
Okay, yeah.
Because we don't want to, we want to be short-sighted on the letter, right?
Yeah.
We don't want y'all.
I'll make a motion, man.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, you can.
So, we're getting a line of credit that they will do.
Letter of credit.
A letter of credit.
Call it a bond.
A letter of
Yeah,
credit.
call it a
So
bond.
basically, they offer to pay a set sum in lieu of doing this. That we're turning
They
down.
didn't offer
No.
us.
No,
We're not.
did I hear that right?
You did hear. You heard what he asked you, correct?
We do not have a firm number today to give you, to tell you what a fee and lease.
We don't have a firm number today to have what a fee and lieu is. We're gonna work with their engineer and our engineer and try to come up with a number. Is that right?
I know that 250,000 more than covers those walks. Aldermen?
That wasn't the
Yes.
number I was told.
That's what I was clarifying before, was the raw cost of the sidewalks, which is the actual sidewalk. and it
That's one
says
is just
the-
right here. This is last time I felt. We did, what is 250 or 300,000? It's a letter that'll be put up every 350. And you bill for 200, it's still the same thing. Am I correct?
That's right.
It's showing up here a $50,000 letter put up. And so really the letter, in one point is irrelevant, but we want to make sure that the dollar is up there, that it will cover based upon what the estimation is. I mean, we can't go no better than that.
Alderman, I think the difference is we don't know what nobody knows, city engineer won't know. Until we get elevations for the new sidewalk based on a new site prep.
But we won't have that number tonight. We don't have that number tonight.
Yes.
And we want to move with a certificate of development tonight. So we want to move with this number, I'm gonna put a number out there. I'm based upon what he said the cost is doing, correct?
Can I ask a quick question,
I
Andrew?
think we could allow their engineer and our engineer
To determine the number.
To determine the number.
Okay, I can make a motion to, and then y'all will determine the number to be put in the letter.
That's right.
Can I do it like that?
Yes.
By mutual consent.
I got a motion.
Not mutual consent, but he'll give the number, our engineer will say
Okay.
that's what the number is, and there may be a difference, and there may not be.
Okay. I'm good, I'm ready to move
I
now.
mean, we don't consent to the number tonight.
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm gonna clarify.
Yeah, y'all, it's industry, I mean, it's.
I make a motion to uphold the planning commission denial as stated. I ain't gonna read all that. With also by them placing a letter,
A letter of credit in lieu
letter
of,
of credit
in lieu of a bond
in lieu of a bond
As determined by the.
for the cost of the sidewalk,
for the cost of the sidewalks on 51 and
the access.
access road.
The number to be agreed on by you and our
By the
engineer.
engineer.
I forgot your name, I'm sorry.
What if you don't, just for instance, you don't agree?
And you come back to the board, I guess. I mean, it's a pretty static number, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen, Joe Frank says, one of the city engineers, be pretty much online with everything he's given us, water tank and everything else.
I don't think that's a big word.
I got a motion. So y'all can deal with that.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Alderman Hobbs.
Aye.
Alderman Harris.
Aye.
Alderman Miller.
Aye.
Alderman Higdon.
Aye.
Alderman McGlinnan.
Aye.
Alderman Brooks.
Aye.
He said,
Motion granted. All right, number 14. Motion to approve the utility bill adjustment document. We have a motion approved. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted.
I would like to, I'd like to look oh no,
Yeah, one more, yeah. Item 15, authorized to advertise to be a fire suppression system for AWG. Y'all hear that, guys? Andrew, we're paying attention.
Sorry.
Motion approved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Motion granted. That was item number 15. That's your fire suppression system.
I got some work to do before we get to that.
All right, number 16, in reference to the police. On Sunday night, which was July the 19th, at around 5:30 p.m. I went to pick up my father-in-law that is relevant. He's an 80-year-old black male. He suffered with dementia. When I arrived at his home, I discovered that he was not there. I searched the area and couldn't locate him. I made a call to the dispatch, and within 15 minutes, dispatch had Officer Cunningham on the scene within 15 minutes. Upon that time, then Officer AG came on the scene. At that time, we gave all the pertinent information, and then I gave the phone number to Officer Cunningham. We asked the dispatcher to ping his telephone. During this time, other officers arrived on the scene, and they canvassed the whole area, started canvassing the area in the vicinity of from College to Highway 51 and from Hill Street back to Oak Grove. It pinged on the tattoo shop on Highway 51, which is at the site of the old service station there on 51. Which is a heavily wooded area. We walked that area and ditching everything, also from the Hannah Police Department, along with neighborhood people. And we went through some areas and we missed him. And also Blair did a canvas behind us again, and we located him in some thicket that you never was seen. But because of the professionalism and we're gonna actually that these names be written into the record because they actually saved your life that night. And Chief Workspoken had all the names of the officers that was on the scene. I just remember these three names. And we was able to get him out. In order to get him out, the thicket that it was, me, my son, and another officer had to break trees down to get him out. That's how thick it was up in there. And so if you talk about some heroes that saved a life, they saved my father-in-law's life that night on Sunday. So if it got dark, we never would have located him. And you know the temperature was hot, it was down in the thickest of wood. And so with everything going on with the police department, I definitely wanted to give Hannah Police Department a cater kudos for going beyond. Like I said, they came and up in the thicket and everybody knows about pinging a phone. When you ping a phone, you have a 64-meter radius. From wherever the ping is, it can be within 64 meters, and that's about a mile and a half. I ain't good on the number, but it's like a mile and a half based on what the ping is. But this ping, we located him within less than 100 yards of the ping. So the dispatcher that never get credit for what they do, they did an awesome job. And like I said, we're gonna ask that the city clerk get all of the names from the chief of police, and we'll actually place them in the record and recognize them as being heroes for saving our lives.
Yes.
It's all positive.
Thank you for sharing that. Right. That's it. Motion to adjourn.
Well, we have a question, please.
Yes.
We can't even understand them on ourselves, so we have a question. Would you please ask the city clerk to read the motion that was passed?
Yes.
You just want the bottom line, you don't want the all the pertinent
That's
data.
correct, that's correct.
You just want to know what the requirement is.
Yes.
To uphold the planning commission denial as stated, also, y'all will place a letter of credit in lieu of bond for the cost of sidewalks on Highway 51 and the access road. And the cost of those will be determined by your engineer and the city engineer.
And to declare that that's gonna be, that they'll be constructed after the sidewalks and everything will be constructed after completion of construction.
Sidewalks be completed after.
After construction of the site.
So the,
Which that would include elevation if it were to be accepted by the city, correct?
You mean the elevation of the sidewalk to the Highway 51?
Whatever would be accepted by the city, however it would be accepted by the city. Not just any sidewalks, I mean, whatever sidewalks were accepted by the city.
It's in the, that data is already in the.
Yeah, it's in.
so the Board of Aldermen have denied the appeal.
Just concrete thrown out.
Put it in the.
They've upheld,
What? It'd be
no, they've
by our
upheld the
ordinance,
denial.
design,
I'm sorry.
They've upheld the denial. They upheld the denial.
For his clarity though, we denied his appeal.
Right.
Yeah, what's the difference?
No, I'm just saying they upheld the planning commission recommendation.
But the thing, only thing different in this, to me, is that you're not gonna construct now. You're gonna construct after your construction and do the same thing that he was talking about that you wanted to do in the first place. That you're gonna defer moving that cost to somebody else. So it won't happen until after.
If they're not done at the
That
end
way
of
you
our
can-
project, we'll
That
have
way
that
the-
letter of credit saying
Both
they'll,
roads. Is that what we're saying on both roads?
Yeah.
Right, okay, right.
I mean, that's in line with it. I
The letter of
think,
credit will be posted at the beginning.
the letter of credit, it come up,
Comes at the beginning.
it starts now, once, you get all the numbers in there.
all right, the letter of credit would probably come before he gets his certificate of occupancy.
No, it'll come at the outset.
It will come when the building permit is issued.
Right.
Yeah, once they come together on the numbers and things, then that's when that'll be done.
We get COD tomorrow. We
It's sealed tomorrow.
We're building sidewalks on Highway 51, the access road. We're posting a letter of credit for the value of the sidewalks as determined by the city engineer and myself.
How quickly?
We,
Okay, thank you very much.
but we're deferring.
Thank you, sir.
The construction until after construction.
We have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
I can do that.
Motion to adjourn.
I
thought we did that already.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
We got this right. We got this right.
think this